everyone, how you doing today? On today's video, I am kickstarting my kind of like awards slash the best and worst of 2021 with slight negatives. So I want to get the negative emotions out of the way before we celebrate the good stuff. And on today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the DNFs of 2021. So without further ado, here are the books that I did not finish in this year. Kickstarting this video off with a book that probably will surprise a lot of people because, well, it had a sapphic romance, it had magic and fighters, and it was fantasy, and it was kind of like everything that I love, and yet I got, I think, 40% of the way through and I just was like, I'm not interested in this book anymore, and I just stopped and haven't gone back to it. And that book is A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. I know, right? I got so excited for this. The cover art was gorgeous, the synopsis was like candy to me. It just drew me in and made me want to eat it until I was sick. And yet, by the time I got nearly halfway through the book, I'm literally reading this book going, I have no idea who these characters are. I don't know what their motivations are. I don't know what's going on. Where's this book going? And the fact that there's like all these different characters and they hadn't yet converged together, it just had such a slow build up and I just lost interest. It's not even one that I can really tell you what the synopsis was because I don't really remember. I think it involved this underground drug or something, and there were these people, like humans were being killed unnaturally, and like the Fey Council wasn't doing anything, but that's how well I remember it, is I don't remember it. Like, I remember one of the characters was really cool because she was like a Valkyrie type character who'd been expelled, and she was just really awesome, but even then I don't really remember enough to be like, yeah, this is why she was awesome. So yeah, that was probably the biggest disappointment for me in terms of DNFs because I was so excited for that book. But hey ho, you live and learn. The next book on the list was actually the first DNF of the year, and that was The Charmed Wife by Olga Grushin or something like that. I'll put the book and the name up here. This was marketed as a Cinderella retelling, but like a dark adult fantasy retelling, and instead we kind of like, it started off as that and it was really intriguing, but then it kind of started to get really confusing and we were getting these flashes of this other world. And it started to go in a direction I wasn't expecting and I wasn't enjoying, and it ended up becoming a story all about mental health, and it wasn't the story that it was being marketed and plugged as. And it also had this really weird sideline where it kept following the story of Cinderella's mice companions, but it had nothing to do with the bloody book. Like, if they'd have had their own story and that book had just been about them, I would have loved it. It was great. But when you're trying to like read one thing and then this thing's coming in and it has no link, it kind of just got really confusing and really frustrating. And I think around about 50% of the way in, I kind of got so sick and tired and was like, what the hell is going on with this book? That I ended up actually skipping to like 90% and I read the last 10% and was like, oh, they are going that really weird, stupid route that makes no sense and completely ruins the book for me, so I'm not going to read that 40% that I just missed. The next book is one that I thought I was going to really enjoy, and I think that's kind of like the theme with these books, is I expect to like them and then I don't. And this one, it's the furthest into a book I have ever gotten before I get DNF. And that book was Hook and Crown by Nicole Knapp, I believe. I'm doing this from memory because I am super smart and didn't write any names down. You think that one day I would learn, but apparently, no I don't. So Hook and Crown is a Peter Pan retelling. And it started off pretty good. It started off with this girl, Wendy, whose parents have died and she's moved to live with her uncle in this like really weird boarding house, where she then meets this girl who turns out to be Tinkerbell. And she then meets Peter and is swept away to Neverland. But then she meets Captain Hook and kind of falls in love with him. And it's just really weird because it was kind of like, click, she's in love with Peter, click, she's in love. And it was just the descriptions got really repetitive and the story got repetitive. And then I managed to listen to it because I was listening to the audiobook and I got to about, like I said, 80%. And they had this one scene that happened and they did it from her perspective. And then they repeated the scene for like, and it took like 15 minutes to get through it each time. So then it was like 15 minutes of her perspective and it was like, cool, great, let's move. Oh, no, now we're going to get that same thing from Peter's perspective. Okay, that he's done that. Oh my God, we're now getting it from bloody Captain Hook's perspective. What the And it didn't happen once, it happened multiple times. And it just got to the point I was just like, do you know what? Screw this, I don't care anymore, I'm done. And I just could not do it. I went on to Goodreads and I read a couple of spoilers. And I found out that at the end something happened and I was just like, really? That's how that's going to end? And I was just like, no, I am actually relieved that I DNF'd it when I did, because there's only so much that you can talk to yourself before you've got to say enough is enough. The next one is one that I was a little bit dubious about anyway, but I thought, you know, I want to branch out, I want to try new genres, I want to try different formats. And this was a new genre and it was audiobook. So maybe if I'd have tried one and not the other, it might have been a better fit for me, but we don't know. And that is The Muse by Jessie Burton. I want to say Jessie Burton. If I'm right, I will put it up. Well, even if I'm wrong, I'll put it up here, but I will, you know, do like a little yay or nay for if I got it right. And this one was set in, I believe, 1960s, and it followed the main character who she's moved to London from the Caribbean, I want to say. She finds this painting. I don't even remember what the synopsis was about. I just remember that I didn't like the audio, I didn't like the narration, the accents, and it felt a bit wooden. And I got about, I think, a quarter of the way through the book, and the fact that I did listen to a quarter of the book and I can't even tell you what that quarter of the book was about. I remember her best friend got married and then this posh woman gave her a job. That's it. That's all I remember. So let's just move on from that. It was a try. It was a test. It didn't work. Move on. The next book that we had is The Binding by, I really should know this name. I really should, because it's not like this was an unpopular book. Oh my God. Come on. The Binding by... Nope. Shit. I'm going to look it up. Bridget Collins. And I did get Jessie Burton right. Woo! Bridget Collins. I should have known that, but I didn't, because I'm smart. But The Binding was another one of those where it was kind of, I didn't know if I would like it, but I was gifted it by, oh my God, come on brain, we've been functioning fine all day. Editing me is going to hate this video. So I was gifted it by Shannon over at 155 Books, and on the slip she said that she'd heard a lot of good things about it and she knew it was really popular. And I kind of wanted it because I really liked the look of the cover and it sounded interesting, where people could have their memories taken from their brains and put into a book instead. So that way, you know, they could go about their lives without all these traumatic memories going through their heads all the time. And it wasn't until after I started reading it that she then contacted me going, hey, if you haven't already read this book, I wouldn't advise it. It's got a lot of trigger warnings. And it was literally like the same day that I'd started this book and gone, this is traumatic. I don't know if I can read this. It started off with a scene that depicted, in my opinion, overly graphic depiction of infanticide and described in detail how this child died. Then there was ridiculously graphic animal violence that, again, was unnecessary. And what got me is the one bit of the book that was bloody interesting, which was the romance. When it finally got to it, it was glazed over. And I'm like, wait, so you're willing to give an in-depth, to the point I'm now shaking and crying and hugging my cats, depiction of an animal being killed. Yet when it comes to two guys getting it on and having sex, which is stuff that we kind of want to be here for, you go, oh look, it's a little bit of icing and we're just going to now glaze over that and move on. No, I think she got her priorities wrong. Unless it was a deliberate tactic for shock factor, I don't know. But yeah, for me, the most interesting part of the book was the part of the book that actually wasn't the main part of the book. So it just got to a point where I was just like, no, I didn't even finish reading the scene with the animal cruelty before I was just like, I am not reading any more of this, because that's now I think that was either the second or the third time that book had made me actually have to put the book down because I was in horror and really upset and triggered. And it was just like, there is a reason why book warnings, like trigger warnings, should be made normal. I don't understand why people like go on about how terrible it is that books have trigger warnings. Like, I'm sorry, people have trauma, and if people have trauma, they have the right to know if that book features that trauma. Every single movie and TV show has it, so why can't books? Side note, check out Book Trigger Warnings, which is a website run by the amazing Jenny and Rob, and they basically put together this big database of books, and you can add books to it as well, and you just type the name in, and if they've got it on there, it will tell you all the trigger warnings and things that are in it. And there's also a feature where you can add tropes and stuff, so give that a try if you are concerned about book triggers in the future. But that's just a little segue. So yeah, that book, I think I got to about 30, no, it must have been about 45% of the way through, and it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to put myself through this emotional turmoil. The final book on this list is The Absolute Book by Elizabeth Knox. To be honest, I think this is one that I need to give another go, because I only got about 60 pages in, if that. It might only have been 30. Because I was reading it while I was at work, and it was like while I was on duty at lunch, so I'd be walking around the playground keeping an eye on the kids, and then in between I'd read a couple of pages here and a couple of pages there. So I think it was like I didn't give it my full attention and I didn't give it long enough. But it was basically this woman whose sister had been killed years earlier, and that's about all I can remember. Is I remember reading about her sister dying, and I remember like it started where she's in the forest or something on a camping trip. So I think that one wasn't really a DNF because it didn't interest me. I think it was just because wrong place, wrong time. I ended up not really reading anymore. So I think next year that's one that I want to give a go, especially as that was gifted to me as an ARC, and I kind of felt bad that I didn't get round to it. So I do definitely want to like try again and see if maybe, because I do want to branch out and try more genres next year, so maybe that's one that I should start with. Let me know in the comments, are any of these books that you read and loved and have a completely different opinion to me, maybe want to try and sway me to try again? I might be swayed into Dark and Hollow Star, The Muse and The Absolute Book, but The Charmed Wife, Hook and Crown and The Binding, there is no chance in hell that I will ever try it. I don't care how good you found it, it's not for me. But the other books, if you have any of them that you think maybe I should give a fair go and try again, let me know and I will see how I feel, or whether I just go no and be really stubborn. Yeah, are there any books that you DNF this year? Again, let me know. I'm always interested to sort of see what people are and are not reading and why. Next video will be the worst books of the year, so aka I didn't DNF them, but I didn't exactly, they weren't my favourites and I didn't necessarily like them, and then we will get on to the more positives. So until next time, I hope you're good, hope you're staying safe, and I will see you soon. Bye!